Hi, Shikha. Thank you very much for introducing and getting us all together. In fact, I must compliment the Times Group. I think it's a very interesting subject we are all on today, and you've had a very packed day. I was seeing the agenda, and you've had some very distinguished level of speakers. So what I thought is, let me just share with you some thoughts, and we'll try and join the dots later, but just some statistics on what is happening out there. But before that, a very quick introduction on what Invest India is. Invest India is the national investment promotion and facilitation arm of the Government of India. We have 4 arms. The first is investor facilitation and promotion. We are the single point of contact for any investor globally or locally. We help them get all government approval, show them the market opportunity, and help the government in their policy making, etc., by providing all the inputs, and then sitting and working with any entity, even after their business has been set up, to resolve any issues as and when they come up. The second part, and by the way, before I say on that one, on the first part itself, it is my pleasure to congratulate each and every Indian we have with us on the show. Just last night, we got a call that UNCTAD, the UN body, has chosen Invest India as the world's #1 investment promotion agency from over 180 countries. So this is just to let you know how fast country is moving and how digital economy and how everything else, even within the government setup, is moving towards creating excellence and that effort of the government for ease of living and making India a better destination for investors, both globally and locally. And by the way, there's been a lot of work done during the COVID period. So I would urge each one of you to visit our website, which is investindia.gov.in. And you will see a large part of the work which the team has been doing, especially ever since we went into the most unprecedented lockdown. Around the 25th of March. The second part of Invest India, you remember the Honorable Prime Minister launched Startup India on 16 January 2016. So in a short period of 50 odd months, we are #3 in the world in number of unicorns, #2 in the world in number of startups, and #1 in the world now in new startups adding every day. And what I must add on that one, so when I spoke of the unicorns, 7 unicorns are from FinTech itself. And in fact, even during this lockdown, we've added 6 new unicorns, and 3 of them are from FinTech, 1 from software, 1 from IoT, and 1 from the fashion business. On the number of startups, we are actually the top 2 countries in the world in number of FinTech startups too. We have over 2,100 FinTech startups. And that is an area which is getting maximum exposure, a large amount of VC funding, and that is where we're seeing growing up exponentially and increasing in numbers. The third arm of Invest India is where we are again the execution arm for the Prime Minister's Science and Technology Initiative. Very interesting. Some of the elements we are doing that is we are doing a waste to wealth initiative where we are picking up sentinel sites across the country, putting up proof of projects, and we're getting the best innovations from the world to come in there. We are also doing a program called Agni, AGNII, the Accelerated Growth of New India Innovation, where we are taking innovations both within the public sector and the government and fast tracking them on to commercialization. And there's a large, robust activity happening on that one. And that is very exciting because that's another area which picks up a lot on the FinTech side. The last is obviously the project management group. These are where the large projects of the government are being monitored by the Prime Minister himself to see that they're getting onto a fast track of implementation and execution. And there we've had some resounding stories of the new India, where we've got projects from the day they were conceptualized by the board and approved by the board in some other country to the day the first commercial production started, happened in the most shortest period of time anywhere they experience in the world compared to anywhere else in the world. So that means projects are getting fast-tracked and executed. So these are the stories of New India. And within that, let me first share with you some interesting points on FinTech before we take them on to where I would see, or what do I see of India emerging as we emerge it out of this pandemic and this COVID. I told you that we are the top 2 countries in the world in number of startups on FinTech specifically. We also have 7 unicorns in FinTech. And the other thing which I must mention to you is that in September, we touched a daily run rate of 41 million real-time transactions. It is the highest in the world. It's ahead of China. We are the number one in real-time transactions that goes straight into fintech itself. Let's now tie in all these dotted points together. What I see coming out of this COVID, and as we all move out of this pandemic, is that India, at a very fast pace, taking back the position it was at when we just started the COVID. Now, let me take you back to the 20th of March when this entire lockdown started. On the 31st of March this year, we closed with an FDI of $74 billion. It's the highest ever FDI we've got in our history. 92% of that came in the open route. That meant we are one of the most open economies on the planet. Private sector can invest in each and every sector of my economy. But the most interesting part of that the 74 billion came at a point where the global FDI market was going down by 8%. My FDI went up by 18%. And more interestingly, over 40% of the 74 billion came in greenfield investment. That means the global investor is comfortable in taking a long-term call on India. Now, this is very, very important. And why did this happen? Because just when we went into the COVID, let us look at the pillars which made India one of the top 10 destinations in the world for FDI. The first is, you're the largest market opportunity in the world. That doesn't change. You will be 1.5 billion customers by 2024. And I think at least for the next 100 to 200 years, you will not have any other single national geographic country which will boast of 1.5 billion customers. And by 2040, as they say, 90% of that will be in the middle class. So let's look at that. And even when we get out of the COVID, that remains as the single largest opportunity. You were the youngest country in the world with an average age of 29 and an aspirational customer base. You will be the youngest economy, at least all the way up to 2080, at least for the next 80 years. And that means there's a very high purchasing power, there's high demand, there's high aspirational society coming up, and that change is happening. That will remain even when we get out of this COVID. When we went into this COVID, you were the fastest growing large economy on the planet. In fact, look at it. In the past 50 months, you raced ahead from number 10 to number 5 as a position in a GDP size. You raced ahead of Russia, Italy, Brazil, France, UK. And you're in a position to be equaling Germany in the next 12 to 24 months, making you number 4. Your $3 trillion economy is looking to be number $10 trillion sometime in the next decade by 2030, give it 1 or 2 years. So you'll be probably in the top 3 economies of the planet at that point of time. And that remains so. But there is a very interesting element which is driving this entire force. And to my mind, India is at its most critical juncture at an inflection point in its history. And that is being driven by the digitization effort of India, by the entire digital policy and that entire concerted effort which you've seen the results of during the past 5 years. Look at it where we are today. By 2025, I told you you'll be 1.5 billion. That means I'll have 1.5 billion people with a unique identity number, your Aadhaar number, 1.5 billion people connected to a mobile account, 1.5 billion people connected to a bank account, and most interestingly, 1.5 billion connected to an internet. Today, we have 730 million people on the net. And every second, 3 new people are joining the net, and 2 of them are from a village in India. And that is what brings me to that amazing India stat point. First, what has happened with the strength? And let me just put it quickly into what has happened. A brand new company in India can get 100 million new customers in 180 days. At a cost per acquisition of a customer, which is 1/5 of that of the global average, never before in economic history, human economic history, has something like that happened. Or a brand new company in India, a global company, comes in for the first time, gets 36 million new customers in 30 months, again, at a cost which is less than half of a global per customer acquisition cost. That is to show you the power of that digitization. And from that power of digitization brings me to the 2 points which I want to discuss with you today, which are going to be driven by fintech. And this is that as we move out of this pandemic, let me pick up the first trend which I see taking off very strongly. You've seen how we are all working from home. And this work from home means work from anywhere. And this effectively means, and this is all riding, by the way, on that digital framework of India, that entire digitization effort and policy and initiative which has happened during the past 60 months. What this means, work from home means actually work from anywhere. And in my opinion, this work from anywhere means that as we step out of this COVID, there is a new India which is taking shape. And this new India will move beyond the 10, 11 growth centers of the big towns and cities and the metros. And the new India you will witness will be bottom up. That means the engine of growth of India will move down to the bottom. And this bottom up approach will make India far more secular in its growth right across the country. Meaning that each and every of those 1.5 billion citizens will have the democratization to the point where there's equal opportunity, equal access to opportunity, equal access to the benefits of growth, equal access to what the government and its support is bringing to each and every growth point in the economy. And each and every citizen will have the ability to participate in creating that growth engine of India. To my mind, that is the inflection point where we are at just now. We are rounding off that hockey stick onto a virtual vertical, which we are all ready to take on. And the second point of that is the strength of my MSMEs, which came out during this pandemic, is what is going to propel the growth of India. Please remember, 30th of March, we did not have a single PPE in India. We were scurrying around across the globe to get PPEs for ourselves. We were short on ventilators. What happened on the 30th of July? I have a run rate of 1 million PPEs a day. And I have my MSMEs who fastly pivoted their business models, who created new innovations, joined hands with larger companies. Today, I have ventilators, I have PPEs, which not just for India, but where I'm exporting them to the entire world, including Europe and the US. That means I'm making them at the fast rate, at a level which they are excellent in quality, and being able to take it out to the world. So where does fintech come in? It brings me to the first point. In September 2017, a small handloom weaver in Karnataka sold 3 saris directly to a buyer in Milan. The money was transferred in that handloom weaver's account directly. There was no middleman involved. What does that mean? Which is when I explained to you and when I mentioned that each and every Indian will now be participating in that growth model. That money went seamlessly. And you know what is interesting? This is exactly when the Prime Minister wanted that one district, one product program, which Invest India is now working on very actively. We've already picked up 110 districts where we've identified those one product each. Just imagine when those products will have access to the global market directly. When that exchange of value will happen directly, and that weaver or that person sitting in a far-flung village will have access for their products to the entire world. Just see the power it will unleash in every Indian and the strength it will bring about in the strength of India's ability to create value in each of those products. The second I mentioned to you about was the MSMEs. One of the biggest beneficiaries coming out of this COVID would be the strength of India, which will be driven by its 65 million MSMEs. Those 65 million MSMEs are the ones which will be now taking India to the next level. And the strength of these MSMEs is in their ability to pivot business models, in their ability to innovate and best at frugal innovation, and the best utilization of capital. And what is happening with fintech is our ability of able to reach out and providing financing to each and every MSME in the nook and corner of India. Let me give you an example what it could happen. Today, a large part of my MSME community, which is the backbone of India, has to rely on the informal financial channel for their financing. That is because a large part of bank financing in India is based on collaterals. You go to a bank, they want a house, they want land, based on which they'll give you a loan. With the entire GST and digitization framework which is being put into place, today the banking community and the entire financial community has better access and visibility on the credibility of your cash flows. That means lending now can happen on those cash flows. A large number of, when we look at the microfinance companies and we are looking at the small scale companies which are coming up in this sector, are lending based on those cash flows. That means that MSME, who was currently borrowing from the informal market at 20 to 24%, will now be able to access funding from the regular channels of anywhere between 12 to 16%. Look at the profitability it will bring and the strength it will bring to that MSME. That is the strength of this fintech revolution which is happening in India. And by the way, please do not look at this revolution in isolation, because what is happening today in India is unprecedented in human history when I look at it from the scale and the pace at which things are changing in India. Never before in human history has such a wide scale of 1.3 billion people in a democratic open setup being impacted at such a pace as what is happening in India today. And one of the reasons, if you look at it, is we have the highest adoption rates of fintech in the world. We have an adoption which is at 87%, which is number one in the world where fintech adoption is happening. And not just fintech adoption, innovation of every kind is happening in India at that fast rate. So what is happening today? And I move a little on the back beyond of fintech. We are seeing an unprecedented change in all the three elements of our life: social, economic, and political. There are never, in the circle of life, be it that of a country or be it that of an individual, the change when it is happening at that rapid change in all aspects, and they're all working together in tandem to come into one single direction of change, which is the great leap forward, doesn't happen too often. It comes one in that cycle of life. That is where we are today. I gave you another figure. And what is happening with this change in all these spheres? It is getting into a form of singularity and creating a greater momentum to that new India. I gave you one more figure when I started. I showed to you and I mentioned that we had a real 41 million real-time transactions in September, the highest in the world. What does that mean? One, it means obviously the fast change of adoption. And by the way, look at it. All this has happened in the past 60 months. And we are competing with countries where this has been happening for decades. And we are already number one in the world. But look at the other point, and which is what I'm taking you to the economic side of it. Real-time transactions mean that the velocity of money is moving faster. That means that 1 rupee which got transacted is now able to do multiple more transactions because it happened at a fast pace than it was doing otherwise. That means the cycle of growth and the momentum of growth gets a huge impetus. It basically means that it further takes that cycle and creates it into a virtuous cycle of growth, which feeds itself on much of a faster track. Fintech and digitization, on the back of which it grows, to my mind, is the backbone of what we are creating as the new India. It is a new India where each and every individual will have an equal opportunity and an equal participation on creating the juggernaut of one of the fastest growing economies and taking India to that $10 trillion figure in the next 10 years. Please remember your $3 trillion today, how long it took you to get here. Your first trillion came in 2007, about 60 years. The second trillion came in 2015, 8 years. The third trillion came in 2020, 5 years. And this pace of change, led by digitization and fintech, is creating that pace where this 3 trillion is all set to be a 10 trillion by 2030. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a new India. I just got a message, my time is done. But it may be my time which may be over, but where the time of India is, it has just begun. Thank you very much for being with us. And I thank the Times Group yet again for bringing us together on such an important subject and at a point where we are at the threshold of a new India. Thank you again, and greetings from Invest India.